You walk into a pharmacy, hand a piece of plastic to the clerk, and wait. The pharmacist scans your prescription. A digital signal leaves the terminal, traveling across a labyrinth of corporate servers. In 3 seconds, it returns with a number. You pay the number. You take your medicine, you go home. What you do not see is the shadow auction that took place in those 3 seconds. You do not see the invisible entity sitting between the doctor who wrote the prescription, the manufacturer who made the drug, the insurance company paying for it, and the pharmacist handing it to you in a paper bag. This entity is the pharmacy benefit manager, the PBM. They are the central paradox of the modern American healthcare market. Decades ago, health insurers realized they were completely unequipped to handle the overwhelming complexity of prescription drug claims. They needed specialists. They hired PBMs to act as aggressive negotiators, administrative experts tasked with bullying pharmaceutical giants into lowering their prices. The mandate was simple: control costs. But a strange economic contradiction emerged. The intermediaries hired to suppress the cost of medicine discovered a mechanism to capture billions of dollars from the very transactions they were hired to optimize. Today, the system they built is entirely opaque. It relies on secret rebates, invisible spread pricing, and vertically integrated supply chains. The result is a market where the entity negotiating the price often profits more when the original price of the drug is high. This is not a conspiracy. It is a documented business model written into thousands of legal contracts. It is an architecture of incentives that transforms a simple medical transaction into a massive financial derivative. The United States spends hundreds of billions of dollars on prescription drugs every year. But the flow of that money is not controlled by the patients who need the medicine or the doctors who prescribe it. It is directed by a handful of corporate toll booths. And to understand why the price of American medicine is so uniquely detached from reality, you have to look inside the toll booth. To understand the bizarre economics of the pharmacy benefit manager, you have to look at the mechanical problem they were originally invented to solve. Go back to the late 20th century. Health insurance companies were primarily designed to pay for catastrophic events: hospital stays, surgeries, major medical emergencies. Prescription drugs were a secondary concern, a minor line item. But as pharmaceutical science advanced, daily maintenance medications became the standard of care. Suddenly, insurers were drowning in millions of small-dollar claims. Paper receipts piled up. Pharmacists spent hours calling insurance offices to verify coverage. It was an administrative nightmare. The market responded by creating a new kind of subcontractor. The pharmacy benefit manager began as a purely clerical entity. They built computer networks to process claims electronically. They issued the plastic cards patients carried in their wallets. They were the IT department of the drug market. But as these IT departments processed millions of transactions, they accumulated something exponentially more valuable than administrative fees. They accumulated data, and with data came leverage. The PBMs realized they controlled access to massive blocks of patients. If an insurance company had 10 million enrollees, the PBM processing their claims effectively held the keys to 10 million customers. They turned to the drug manufacturers and made a proposition. There are often multiple drugs that treat the same condition: 2 different statins for high cholesterol, 2 different inhalers for asthma. The PBM told the manufacturer, if you want our 10 million patients to buy your specific statin, you have to give us a discount. This discount took the form of a rebate. The manufacturer would set a high list price, but privately kick back a percentage of that price to the PBM every time a prescription was filled. To enforce this system, the PBMs created the formulary. The formulary is simply a list of approved drugs. If a manufacturer refused to pay the rebate, their drug was excluded from the formulary. The patient's insurance would not cover it. The manufacturer would lose millions of sales overnight. From a traditional economic perspective, this looks highly rational. It is the exact cost control function documented by the Government Accountability Office. The GAO independently verified that PBMs administer prescription benefits, negotiate these rebates, and use their massive scale to influence drug pricing. They act as a collective bargaining unit for fragmented insurance plans. For a time, the model functioned exactly as designed. The PBM used the threat of formulary exclusion to extract deep rebates from manufacturers, and they passed those savings back to the health plans, lowering premiums for everyone. But the mechanics of the rebate created a dangerous structural incentive. The PBM is paid a percentage of the rebate they negotiate. If a drug costs $10, a 10% rebate is $1. If a drug costs $1,000, a 10% rebate is $100. The intermediary hired to lower costs suddenly had a massive financial interest in highly priced drugs. If the manufacturer lowered the list price of the drug, the PBM's rebate revenue would collapse. The system did not incentivize cheap medicine. It incentivized expensive medicine with massive secret discounts. And the PBM stood in the middle, keeping a slice of the secret. The rebate was only the first layer of the mechanism. As PBMs grew in power, they engineered a second, far more aggressive method of extracting capital from the supply chain. It is called spread pricing. Imagine a patient walks into an independent pharmacy in a small town. They hand over a prescription. The pharmacist dispenses a generic medication. Behind the counter, the pharmacist's computer queries the PBM. The PBM dictates exactly how much the pharmacist will be paid for dispensing that drug. Let us say the PBM reimburses the pharmacy $20. Simultaneously, the PBM sends a bill to the patient's health insurance plan. But they do not bill the plan $20. They bill the plan $50. The health plan pays the $50, believing that is the true cost of the drug. The pharmacist receives $20, barely enough to cover the wholesale cost of the pill. The PBM quietly keeps the $30 difference. This is the spread. The PBM leverages its position as the sole clearinghouse of information. The health plan does not know what the pharmacy was paid. The pharmacy does not know what the health plan was billed. Only the PBM sees both ledgers. This is not a theoretical vulnerability. It is a documented reality of the American healthcare system. State Medicaid programs, which use taxpayer dollars to fund healthcare, eventually audited their PBM contracts. In Ohio, a state audit discovered that PBMs had charged the state Medicaid program hundreds of millions of dollars in spread pricing in a single year. The intermediaries were capturing massive margins on generic drugs simply by exploiting the information gap between the state and the local pharmacies. The GAO reports explicitly detail this practice. They note that PBMs use complex pharmacy reimbursement arrangements, including spread pricing, to generate revenue outside of their traditional administrative fees. To protect these margins, the PBMs consolidated. The market swallowed itself. Dozens of regional PBMs merged, acquired each other, and formed massive conglomerates. The resulting concentration of power is staggering. The Federal Trade Commission reported that by 2023, the 6 largest pharmacy benefit managers handled more than 90% of all prescriptions in the United States. 3 companies, CVS Caremark, Express Scripts, and Optum Rx, control the vast majority of the market. They dictate the terms of survival for nearly every pharmacy in the country. They decide which drugs are covered for hundreds of millions of Americans. They are no longer just administrative assistants. They are the market makers. And as their power grew, they realized that negotiating with independent pharmacies was a vulnerability. If they controlled the payment network, why were they still paying independent businesses to dispense the drugs? The intermediaries decided to buy the pharmacies. The final evolution of the PBM business model is vertical integration. It is the closing of the loop. A true middleman sits between 2 independent parties. But the modern PBM is not an independent broker. The companies that own the major PBMs also own the largest health insurance companies, and they own the largest retail pharmacy chains, and they own massive mail-order pharmacy facilities. Optum Rx is owned by United Health Group, the largest health insurer in the country. CVS Caremark is owned by CVS Health, which owns the massive retail pharmacy chain, and Aetna, a major health insurer. Express Scripts is owned by Cigna, another insurance giant. The entity negotiating the price of the drug is owned by the entity paying for the drug, and they both own the entity dispensing the drug. This creates a profound distortion in the market. When a PBM sets the reimbursement rate for a drug, they are not just negotiating with an independent business. They are negotiating with their own subsidiaries. independent pharmacists began reporting a bizarre phenomenon. When a patient came in to fill a prescription for a highly profitable specialty drug, the PBM would abruptly deny the claim. The PBM would inform the patient that their insurance required them to use a specific mail-order pharmacy. That mail-order pharmacy was owned by the PBM. The intermediary was using its control over the insurance benefit to siphon the most lucrative prescriptions away from independent competitors and direct them into its own corporate ecosystem. The independent pharmacies were left with the low-margin generic prescriptions, and on those generics, the PBMs aggressively cut reimbursement rates, often paying the independent pharmacy less than it cost to actually buy the drug from the wholesaler. The independent pharmacy bleeds cash. The PBM's internal mail-order pharmacy captures the high-margin revenue. This dynamic triggered intense federal scrutiny. In July 2024, the Federal Trade Commission released an interim staff report on prescription drug middlemen. The findings were stark. The FTC documented the extreme concentration of the market. They detailed the vertical integration. They exposed how PBMs exert profound influence over formularies and how their reimbursement tactics squeeze independent pharmacies to the brink of collapse. But the FTC report is careful to preserve a crucial truth qualifier. These findings include staff analysis, and they use qualified language regarding incentives and potential effects. The economics are deeply complex. It does not mean every single PBM contract artificially raises every single patient's price. In many cases, large employers and unions knowingly sign these contracts because the PBM guarantees a predictable overall drug spend. The rebate mechanism, however opaque, does subsidize premium costs for millions of enrollees. The system is entirely functional for the corporate entities balancing the macro ledger. The conflict lies in the micro-reality. The conflict is the cancer patient who discovers their life-saving medication is suddenly excluded from the formulary because their PBM failed to secure a high enough rebate from the manufacturer. The conflict is the rural town that loses its only pharmacy because the PBM reimbursed the pharmacist $10 for a drug that cost $12 to stock. The PBMs argue they are the only defense against pharmaceutical companies that raise list prices relentlessly. They point to the GAO's documentation of their cost control function. They claim they save the system billions of dollars a year. The pharmaceutical companies argue the exact opposite. They claim they are forced to artificially inflate list prices just to afford the massive rebates demanded by the PBMs. And sitting in the middle of this multi-billion-dollar blame game is the patient, staring at a cash register, completely blind to the machinery calculating their fate. The pharmacy benefit manager is not a glitch in the American healthcare system. It is the system functioning exactly as it is incentivized to function. When an economy outsources cost control to a for-profit intermediary, it guarantees that cost control will become a product itself. The PBMs did not invent the high price of medicine. They simply built an incredibly efficient toll booth on the road to the pharmacy, and then they bought the road. The economic contradiction at the heart of the PBM model is the illusion of alignment. The health plan hires the PBM believing their interests are aligned. Both want to spend less money. But the PBM's revenue is fundamentally tied to the velocity and volume of capital moving through the pharmaceutical supply chain. A system designed to obscure the true price of a commodity will inevitably be exploited by the entity that controls the ledger. We are left with a market structure where the actual product, the chemical compound synthesized to cure a disease, is almost secondary to the financial engineering surrounding it. The rebate, the spread, the formulary tier, the vertically integrated dispensing fee, these are the true products being traded. The consequences ripple outward, distorting the behavior of every participant. Drug makers design pricing strategies not for patients, but for PBM rebate negotiators. Insurers design benefits not for optimal health outcomes, but for maximum rebate capture. Pharmacies design operations not for patient care, but to survive PBM audit algorithms. The mechanism is rational. The mechanism is brilliantly designed. The mechanism is highly profitable. But when the mechanism dictates which factory produces a pill, which truck delivers it, which pharmacist hands it over, and which patient can afford to swallow it, it ceases to be a mere administrative tool. It becomes a sovereign power over human survival. If the entities hired to manage the cost of medicine only thrive when the system remains impossibly complex, who is left with an incentive to actually cure the disease of the market?